So today we're going to be doing binding, and you'll end up with a journal that looks like this. This is Japanese stab binding, and we're going to take 20 pieces of paper and put them into our journal. First thing you need to do is look at your papers, and after you make your papers, you'll have a few of them that you've made, and you can choose a paper to put for your covers by, you want it to be pretty thick, so I'm going to take this one. This one is one of the ones that I embossed, so it says "Be Kind" on it. You can see my words got pretty nicely embossed, so I'm going to use this one. It's pretty thick. And then I like this one is one of the ones that I pulp poured, and so I'm going to use this one for the back cover, and I like the way the pinks match there, so I'm going to use those. Oh, I also wanted to show you this one from yesterday. This is one of the ones that was a watermark, so you can see the difference between how the watermark is just lightly in there and the embossing is much, much deeper in. So there's that. The first thing you do is you get your inside papers, and we have 20 5x7 papers. The papers for the inside are the same. You should find those in your kit. You get your inside papers, and you need to have a couple of clips like this, and you should find those. You also want a couple of extra scrap pieces of paper, and you want to get your papers on how you would like them to be, and you want to make sure they're pretty straight. It matters more that they're straight on the outside edge, because where you'll be binding, it won't matter. So you want to really make sure this outside edge is straight, and then you put them close to that edge, and you want the extra to be over on the outside edge, and you just size it up so you can see how I have it saying "Be Kind" on the front. And then I'll take my papers, and I just want to put these clips on so that it secures my journal. I just need a couple of them to make sure my papers don't move in there. And once I have that, I am going to use my awl. Let's see if I find my awls. Where did I put my awls? Aha! This is called an awl. And I'm going to now use my awl to punch holes. But first I have to measure where I want my holes. And I'm going to use a pen to do that. You can see that there's several places that we're sewing in, and it would be really hard to sew without having first measured and put the holes in where you want to sew. So you can either use the metrics or the inches, but this one is about every half an inch. So I'm going to go on this one, and I'm going to put my ruler here. And the first hole, let's see, I'm going to just put it so that it's about even, so that first hole will be, you can kind of see that it's not exactly 7 inches, so I'm going to put it so that the 7 and the 0 are about the same from the edge, so that first half, quote, quote, half inch will be not equally not as in. And then I'm going to put it about a half an inch from the edge also. And I'm just going to start marking at half inch increments. So I'll get the 1, the 1.5. And the light in here is not. Let's see if I can see. 3.5, 4, the 4.5. I think the ruler is, my ruler's getting there. I can see it better if I go like that. And then the 6.5. And I think that, oops, I missed the 6.5. There we go. The 6.5. So there we go. And then, so I have it about every half an inch. And then I want this last one, you can kind of see there is different. So that one is going to go in the corner, and it wants to go about at a 45-degree angle, and it's more about at the 1/4 inch. So you have then half an inch, and then this one you'll see is about a 1/4 inch in and about a 1/4 inch from the edge the other way. So now that we have them marked, you're going to take your awl. This is called an awl. It's used to punch holes. You don't want to punch it directly into your table, or it will make holes. A lot of times I use balsa wood to do that, but this is something that I found at the hardware store. It's just foam, and then if you put something like a cutting board underneath, then it won't go through. You can also put some of the Formica underneath, and it won't go through. And then you're just going to take and punch all your holes. Nice. And what this does when you use your awl to do this is it makes it so your needle can go through nice and easy while you're sewing. And you can see we're getting it going all the way through, and that's what you want to have happen so that when you're sewing, it's an easy sew. Otherwise, when you're sewing, you end up having to really work hard. And there you go. Okay, so now we have your journal all punched, and you can see on the back it's all punched as well. And you're ready to move on to the next step, which is choosing your thread. And I have a bunch of thread here, and I need a needle, here's a needle. So here's a needle, and I have a green thread in here right now, but I kind of want to pick one that I think goes with my journal. So let's see, this purple will give me a variegated purple with all of my variegated stuff going around here, so I kind of like that. Next step is to know how much thread you need. For this binding, I'm going to take 6 times the length of my book. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then I always add on just a little bit extra in case, because I don't want to run out. All right, and then thread the needle, which of course, because I'm being filmed, will take me forever. Did I get it? Nope. I'm gonna try it from the other side. All right, you got it? So, needle's threaded. You want to pull it down so that you have not too long of a tail, and we'll keep pulling the tail through as we're going along. Now you want to start in the 1, 2, 3, 4th hole down. And you're going to take your needle up. You're going to leave a pretty nice long thread at the end that'll allow us to tie off, and then you'll have a good tassel at the end that looks pretty on your journal. And if you desire, you can put beads, but you come around and back up through that same hole. So you can kind of see it goes all the way around on the other side. And we came right back up through that same hole, and you pull it tight. And you have to hold the other thread. Then you go up to the next hole, and you do the exact same thing. So you're sewing up, and then you go around the outside of the spine and back in. And again, you're keeping that other string not in it. And it's hard at the beginning because you have a lot of thread, but it gets easier. And you're going up again. And you want to make sure you're keeping your thread not getting knotted. And again, around the spine, back in the same hole. And that's what makes those loops around the spine, is you're going back in the same hole. Now you're at the end where you have your little closer to the edge hole. And it's good to have this at the top and the bottom because it just strengthens your binding. So you're going now down at that 45-degree angle to your closer to the edge hole and around. And let's make sure where we're getting into trouble with this thread is at the end. So I'm going to just snip it off a little bit because I think it's where I was trying to thread it so many times. So I'm going to snip it off and make it a little cleaner there. And that's another reason it's good to start with so much thread. And that'll keep it a little happier. And you might have to do that a couple of times. The more times it goes through the hole at the end, it can get a little rough, but you can see how that cleaned it up and made it happier for us. Now you're going to go back into that hole right where the 45-degree angle was and back into that hole. And you're basically just sewing up the spine. You can see how on this book we're sewing all the way up the entire spine, and you can see how this one is starting to mimic this one. So we're now going to go into this hole and sew into this hole, and you do a running stitch for these holes and a whip stitch around the edge of the spine. So a running stitch down and a whip stitch around. So long as you remember that, you can pretty much go how you want, but you want to straighten them out so that it looks nice along the edge. So then you're going to go down and around all the way down the spine. And now I'm at the end where I'm finishing back in, so I'm going to do one more like that. And then I can do around like this. Oops. Let's see. Get that edge, make sure I'm pulling out my string. Then I'm going to go into my little one and make sure I go both edges for the little one. It doesn't really matter which edge I do first, but I want to make that square off on the edge. And once I make that square for the edge, I'm going back up into here. And then this is the really easy part, because you can see you have a blank for every one of these. And all you do for this part is go down. And then you see on this side you have an empty spot, and you're just going back up. And then you're going down in, and you're just going to walk this string back up this part of your book to finish off places where there are no stitches, which is, as long as you've done your binding correctly, you can see how every other stitch has an empty spot, and you're just filling them in. And once you get to this spot, you're done, and you have one string on one side and one string on the other side, and we have a finished binding. So it's all the way done on that side, all the way done on this side. And you can at this point take your needle off, and you can take off your clips if you can find the end of your clips, and you can see now that this is a bound book. And you can open it up. It's completely done. You can open it like that, and you'll be able to write in it and use it as a journal. But you can choose to just tie this off as one string. If you have extra string, sometimes I like to take this extra string that I have, and we'll see how well I do at threading. If I do well at threading, I'll do this one. So sometimes I like to take this extra string, and before I tie it off, and you can run, if you like lots of strings or you have extra strings at home, you can, and I have made it even, so, nope, I haven't made it even. So I'm going to hold the one purple and pull the other purple through so that I now have an extra string here before I tie it off. And that'll give me a little, I'm just going to take the needle off again, maybe. And then I'm going to make this sort of even, and then I'm going to tie it off. And then I have an extra little tassel here. And you can do that with as many strings as you want until it gets, you wouldn't want to put too many strings through there, because it tends to get, it can only take so many through that, strings through that hole. So I usually get 4 to 6 through, and then you have a nice little tassel on your book. And you can put beads on it if you want to, or just leave it, and it just makes a nice little tassel hanging off your book. And then you're done.